Upgrades.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review. Today, we are bringing you the latest from my favorite streaming service, Shudder, which is also on amcplus. If you happen to have amcplus instead of having the direct app of Shudder, which I still recommend. If you have amcplus, I still recommend you get the direct app of Shudder. That's one of my favorite apps humanly possible for streaming stuff. But we get you the Shudder original, From Black. And it's directed by Thomas Marchese. It stars Anna Camp as Core, John Isles as Abel, and Jennifer Lafleur as Braden. Now, here's a quick synopsis of this film. A recovering drug addict, desperate for closure and saddled by crushing guilt after the disappearance of her young son, is presented with a bizarre offer to learn the truth about what happened if she's willing to pay a terrifying price. Now, first off with From Black. From Black is presented like another entry into the grief horror genre. This is a subgenre of horror that really started, I wanted to say, really coming to fruition maybe between 8 to 10 years ago. And it hit its high point with a film like The Babadook, where it was like, okay, this is what a grief horror film looks like. Since then, we've had a lot of films attempt to also enter this genre. Immediately comes to my mind is Run Rabbit Run, which played at film festival this year and is picked up by Netflix that plays on later on this year. That we've had films attempt to enter this genre, this subgenre of horror, and not do the best job in the world of it. My first impressions is that From Black, throughout all its flaws, is still an extremely entertaining film here. We open the film up as we're introduced to a cop who tends to who's going through a crime scene. While they're going through a crime scene, we hear a voiceover work about what happened in this crime scene and what the cop is seeing, and then what must have happened during the time when everything happened as a cop enters a room full of blood. And then we skip to a police station where we have Anna Camp's character, Cora, in there being questioned by this cop. From there, the movie really backtracks and back forwards. It's weird the way they play with time here. It's not like huge time jumps. Well, it is huge time jumps, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a huge time jump. And we meet Cora fully. She's a recovering addict at this time, and we find out the reason she's recovering from being an addict is because she lost her son while being extremely high one day, and she didn't know what happened to him. This is where the film takes an odd turn here, as we see Cora meets a very weird guy here for some odd reason at her job. That their conversation makes me think they clearly knew each other before this one meeting we see on screen. That's one of the flaws of this film, because they give us no backstory at all to that. But they seem to know each other, and from here is where the film takes a bit of a turn, as it turns from what could be considered just a grief horror type film to a demonic possession, satanic, grief-stricken horror film. It's lots of subgenres of horror in this one film here. But Core is presented with the opportunity to know more about her son, as long as she basically does a seance for a demon who can bring back her son and bring information about her son. It sounds silly. It sounds absolutely silly. What saves this movie is Anna Camp's performance is spot on. As the grief-stricken Core, Anna Camp does an amazing job of setting up exactly what this character is going through. And from an audience perspective, we actually believe every bit of emotion she evokes into this character at times. We see this character trying to hold on to hope. We see other times where the grief is just completely taking over this character. No matter what we see, though, no matter how many facets of this character we get, Anna Camp is really, really good in this film. The flaw of this film. This is one of the most annoying scores I've ever heard in a horror movie. And what makes it annoying is not the song choices, not the jumps moments of it. It's just so loud. I've never heard this. I've never even thought about this as a critique of a score, that the score is too loud for this movie. In horror, you need the scores to kind of build up to the scare. By the time you get to the scare, it feels like for this at times for this movie, like your eardrums will pop. Now, possibly if you're watching it on a very small television or on your phone, you won't necessarily fully notice just how horrible the sound is at times. But if you're watching any other aspect, you're gonna notice how bad this sound is in this film, and at times that takes you out of it. And it's a sad thing because the practical effects of when this supposed demon pops up, the practical effects of the actors is great. The direction here is really good for all the flaws this film has, and you can clearly watch it and see it is a lower budgeted type of horror film, but the director does an amazing job of what he has here. I think the biggest flaw I had was the score of this film. I mean, while the plot is very predictable, there's no way you're not going to see any of this stuff coming. There's no big surprises here. It's a kind of a straightforward film. I think, though, personally, that's what works best for this film, is that it is straightforward, that it's not trying to surprise you and give you something completely new in this genre. This is a seen it once, seen it all before type of a film, where if you know this genre, if you know this subgenre of horror, or if you know horror in general, you kind of know how the film's going to move. But it's up to the audience just to be engaged in it, and that's what Anna Camp does an amazing job of keeping you interested in this movie. At times of this movie, because of the sound quality that I really had an issue with here, I wanted to come out of it. I wanted to say, yeah, I'm just done with this film. I'll just watch it, and then I'll get to the work I need to do on it. And every time I would say that, Anna Camp would just flip a switch with her performance that would get me so enthralled on exactly what's happening with this character. It is such a good performance in a sub horror film that it kind of elevates the film even more here. So while From Black has its flaws, this is still a film, kind of a weeknight type of watch that you can have here. Again, it's going to have flaws. The third act is not the strongest in the world. The first two acts kind of set up everything we need to see before it just goes haywire by the third act. But throughout it all, and it still keeps you engaged in the whole film. So this is definitely something that I think weeknights, weekend nights, sometimes on the weekend during the midday portion, this is that type of a film. This is what, to me, Shudder's almost perfected with their original horror films, is understanding that they make horror films for any time. Unlike the bigger studios that make horror films, and it's only a section of time, normally in the theaters and stuff, you go to see it. This was a good escapism type of horror film that I got here, with a good performance, solid direction. The score, absolutely horrible. But other than that, it's shot really well. It's acted really well, especially from Anna Camp. I mean, the other ones, they at times feel like they're just going through the motions of it all. But she's giving such a good performance. It kind of helps pull you back into the film. So, From Black, brought to you by Shudder and amcplus, and it is currently available now. Out of a possible 10, I'm going to give From Black a 5.5 out of 10. This is a solid film. Not the best you're going to ever see. Far from the worst you're ever going to see. You're tuning in for Anna's performance here in something completely different. Most people will remember her from Pitch Perfect. When you see this role, though, it's so different from anything she did or any talent that she showed in Pitch Perfect that it's going to keep you intrigued in it. In the end, it's still a bit of a mystery exactly what happens with these characters in there. And that's what keeps you intrigued in it. And along with the emotional weight that is carried by Cora, was the character played by Anna in this film, it's something to marvel at, because you don't necessarily expect this type of performance out of a lower budgeted horror film, but you really get it here, and it's the one thing that you can't miss out of this movie. So check it out. Again, on Shudder, it's available now. Check it out. Let us know what you think of it. This has been another JVS movie review. Peace, people.